Hello and welcome to Ware Gaming's reactions to the Xbox 2019 E3 Showcase. My name is Nick, and alongside me is my brother Josh. Say hi, Josh.
Hi, Josh. And for the first time ever, we are also joined by a Joker from Persona 5.
Welcome, Joker.
Welcome, Joker. You're a welcome addition to this team.
Yeah, you may have not been in the Microsoft press conference, but you'll be in the reactions videos. So, we are about an hour after the press conference ended.
Yes.
We came in a little late because of family obligations, so we recapped the beginning. We watched everything, and so now we have our full opinions, thoughts. We've searched
We got
the
to
Twitters.
see what I thought was a 2-hour conference.
It ended up only being an hour and a half.
And it was only an hour and a half.
What most likely would have was happened is there's nearly 2 hours of content.
It was, like,
I could've
it was
sworn that
probably
was a
like an
tweet.
hour and 37 minutes or something.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Not
But
splitting
I
hairs.
swore I thought I heard it was going to be 2 hours.
Well, I looked at my phone and I was like, it's only been an hour and a half.
I'm going to back off just a little bit. It looks like my audio's a little
Okay.
on the peaky side.
Well, I looked at my phone and I was like, oh man, it's only been an hour and a half. Well, only. But I was like, all right, so.
They were about to really get into it.
And then it ended. And I was like, oh, okay. So we're not going to go through every little thing that happened. We did take notes of it all. But I wanted to start off with just your basic impressions of where you were before the show and then how you feel after.
Well, before the show, we've been kind of talking all year. This is Microsoft's year to really shine because Sony's not here. They've been on the ropes all generation. They needed to come out strong. They picked up all these studios, and it was time for us to see what all these studios were going to be doing. And so I came into the conference expecting big hitters. They tweeted out beforehand they had 14 Microsoft Game Studios games going to be at the show, and they were going to show off new Xbox hardware, and we knew they were going to talk about xCloud, and there was going to be the biggest, the most games they've ever shown at a Microsoft stage.
Mm-hmm.
So they really hyped it up as this is going to be huge. We're going to tell you why you need to be playing Xbox right now. After the conference, I thought it was a good conference, but for the year that they needed, it was not the conference they needed. They needed a home run, and they might have hit a double.
Yeah.
Like it was. They showed some really cool games, some really cool previews, but I don't think anything they showed us, even, and we'll get into it more, even like the next gen stuff and the xCloud stuff, like I don't know really, other than some release dates, what they announced here that was brand new.
Right.
There was a few games that weren't really necessarily their games specifically. There were some third-party games, but nothing they announced, especially hardware-wise and their xCloud-wise, was information that we didn't already anticipate or didn't already know.
Sure.
Like the Game Pass stuff, Game Pass Ultimate, we already knew pretty much the price on that. The only thing they added this time was now it goes across the platforms between Xbox and PC.
Right.
That was really the big news of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll let you go ahead and
that's okay. So I didn't necessarily write down my exact thoughts, but they're not too far away from yours. I felt that it definitely was the year for them to show why E3 can still exist without Sony. And E3 is existing without Sony, but it doesn't necessarily feel any different. I mean, with what you said about Microsoft needing to come in and really hit it, I was like, it felt like last year's conference,
right?
Almost to the T. I was like, I feel like I've heard this amalgamation of words before.
Yeah, we heard about, not to totally interrupt, but we heard about Gears 5, we heard about Halo, we heard about
right
already.
And so it was kind of like, well, okay. And then I look at the list of games that were announced, and that were talked about, I should say. And after, I mean, if we want to be completely honest, after they talked about Game Pass, well, see, that's a little bit unfair. But there's a pretty somewhat clear line of when it was just talking about additional stuff to games that we already knew, or either that you can already play
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And that was probably like there's at least a half hour's worth of DLC information or remastered +1 games with the Star Wars. So it was a lot of kind of lackluster appeal. I think that the people who, I searched through Twitter and see what people thought, and there's some people who really love Xbox and did really like the conference because it catered to exactly what they wanted to see. They wanted to see more games come into their system and seeing the services really benefit them. And for that, Xbox delivered, but they have been already.
Yeah.
I didn't know personally that the Ultimate Bundle was coming out, where you can get all 3 things for one price of $15 a month.
Well, remember they announced they announced Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. We talked about it a few weeks ago.
Well, they talked about Xbox Game Pass coming to the PC.
Well, that was last week, but about a month ago, we talked about Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which included
okay, you're
Xbox
right.
Live
I
or
guess,
Xbox Gold and all that stuff.
I guess my thought was that it was different in my brain because it was including PC.
Right.
I don't know.
In
I don't
this
know.
instant, and they've added that it includes the PC subscription, which is a different set of games than the one on the
Right.
console.
And they said that it would include the Master Chief Collection and
Right.
2 signature PC games like Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition and something else. Emperor.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, so all that to say is that what they're doing in terms of services, in terms of getting that Game Pass bundle and making it affordable for most people, and then the other thing which we can get into. I guess I've never really put a period in my thoughts. Basically, I thought the things that they've already been doing, they continue to do well, but the things that we were hoping that they would do, they still haven't done.
Right.
And I think it goes to show why PlayStation left, because they're kind of in the same. I mean, they're not just in the same boat because they're both about to release a new console. They're in the same boat because they only have a few big hitters left before they have to start announcing. And so instead it was, well, we don't really have things from the Initiative or, the We Happy Few developers. We don't have anything from these guys.
Yeah, we don't have a new one from Obsidian. We don't have, yeah.
Right. And I didn't expect to see one from Obsidian. I didn't expect Ninja Theories to be what it was.
Right.
And all that stuff. So all that to say is that Sony took a good idea of saying, we don't really have much to show you right now, and so we're just gonna have a good time with what we have this year.
And we're gonna do these little state of plays. They're gonna be 15 minutes probably at the most, and we're gonna showcase things that even if we put all these together, wouldn't have really made a knockout conference, and why spend all the money to go there to disappoint fans because there's nothing to show right now.
Right. And I think I don't see that there's anything that was announced today. I don't feel it couldn't have been a press release.
Yeah. Like when they announced Xbox Live or Xbox Game Pass or Game Pass for PC.
Was that was a game?
They could have said, and it's included in the Ultimate subscription, and then the XCloud. If they had more, so do we want to start getting into the nitty gritty of some of this?
So summing up the initial reaction, we're both kind of about it. It was good.
And to be totally clear, neither of us are Xbox fanboys. We're PlayStation guys. But I've been very interested in what Xbox has been doing. They've been doing a lot of pro-consumer moves with their services, the Xbox Game Pass, and putting all their first-party studios into the Game Pass, and then the Xbox Play Anywhere initiative where they're putting it on PC. I think all that's really cool. Working with Nintendo is really cool. I just think this was not what they needed.
Right.
It was not enough.
All these things could have been cool on their own.
To me, this shows that Xbox is going to have a very interesting 2020, but 2019 is another dead year for them.
Yeah. So let's get into what this like 2-minute bit about the xCloud was?
Okay, this was a little later in the show, but they did show talk about xCloud. It was very unclear, clear as mud, what exactly this was going to be. But xCloud, I think in general, is the idea of using Azure servers to the Microsoft Azure servers that have like 520 or whatever.
For the record, you're saying Azure. Azure. But it's not like as your server.
Azure servers. Anyway, xCloud is supposed to run off these Azure servers, and hypothetically, you could play on any device streaming from that data center. With what they announced today was that people at E3 in LA would get their first hands-on on them, how it works, probably in like a very controlled environment, and then that and in addition to what the xCloud is, it's also your personal Xbox will connect to the Azure servers and act as a server itself for your games. So you could play on any device playing your games anywhere.
From your Xbox.
So as long as they're on your Xbox, my understanding is it connects to the Azure servers, and then you can beam them to any device that you would like to play on. Mm-hmm. And that's coming out in October.
Yeah.
And that's really all they had to say about xCloud.
I think the part that I was struggling with one is what that is. What does it mean that your console is your? I mean, I know now, but like, what does it mean that your console is your like personal server? And it was a really quick thing that I'm like, granted, maybe you didn't want to take 20 minutes to try to explain the intricacies of how this stuff works, but when you look at if what they're trying to do is supposed to be equivalent to what Stadia is doing, then I mean, right now I completely understand how Stadia is working.
Right.
And I have no hitch in my brain. It's like, how is this supposed to work? And right now they're not being very clear about what this is supposed to look like at the end of the day, other than play anywhere.
Because at first blush, them saying that you can use your Xbox as a server, it sounds more like the PlayStation 4's remote play. Mm-hmm. Like, I can log onto a PC and connect to my PS4 and play my games, and it beams the signal to the device I'm using at the time to play the game. But there's a lot of latency, there's a lot of lag. It's just not as good as playing on the actual console. And so at least what I think they're trying to say is that it's not as simple as just connecting to your Xbox. It's your Xbox is connected to the Azure cloud, and then, or the xCloud, Project xCloud, whatever, and then that's helping that's communicating with your Xbox to send you the data stream of what you're playing. Mm-hmm. And then you would have access to those titles that you already own, and you wouldn't maybe not. So that leads me to believe that there's probably a subscription service for the games on xCloud, but you can use your already purchased titles for no extra charge. So there wouldn't be a charge to play anywhere with your titles, but if you wanted to play the Game Pass on xCloud or something, you would have to pay a subscription.
Right. So still a little unclear, but hopefully reporters who are experiencing it may be able to paint a better picture of what we're going to see.
And see, to me, this is one section that they really could have like bumped up this conference, where they could have taken five more minutes and been like just a little bit more thorough about how this was, and take that away from Gears 5 that we've already seen,
or just anything that we've already seen. Well, like what they easily could have done is what like Google Stadia did at their press conference a couple months ago, which is like if they're already demonstrating it to the public on the floor, then have a small unit on stage and be like, this is me playing Gears 5 or whatever right now on my Xbox. If I want to go over here, and then pull up your tablet, pull up your thing, and just, I mean, it could be been the exact same presentation, but just showing you how we're doing it for us.
Yeah. And like you said, hopefully, the guys on the ground over there do get a little bit more concrete information about what all this means and how this affects us, and it's not just Xbox Remote Play.
Right.
Because if it's just that, like if it doesn't like if connecting to the Azure servers doesn't make it better, then Remote Play is just still going to be like okay.
Right.
But if it's actually as fast as you want it to be for a remote experience, that it connects to the Azure for that, it's got to be more than just remote play. And I'm not going to repeat myself again.
Gotta be more than just remote play.
Right.
And then it ended. Well, we didn't really talk about it. It started off the conference with Outer Worlds, Bleeding Edge. Outer Worlds being Obsidian's not first party, but first party produced game.
Right.
What was your take on that?
It looks interesting. It's another. I mean, Obsidian is the original developer of Fallout. They also originally developed the Stick of Truth for the South Park game.
Mm-hmm.
I really love South Park. Fallout was just one of those games that it's just too big for me, and that's my same fear with Cyberpunk. Like if it gets too big, I just can't focus, and like I get afraid of like if I do this, I'm not going to see this 25 hours into the game, and I get crippled by maybe I need to like follow a guide. Well, that's dumb. Well, I'll just have 25 different saves so I can go back. But I'm like, I'm not going to play this 70-hour experience 20 times just to see everything. I don't have that kind of time to do that. So, I mean, it looks neat. It looks, funny and interesting, and I'm curious to see more of it. But for me, it wasn't mind blowing.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this now after we've already started recording, but I was thinking maybe we can just pick a few games on the list that we were like, this piqued my interest the most, and then obviously the obvious ones that were
that's pretty much what we've got. The obvious ones to talk about, obvious things to talk about.
Yeah, and I brought up Outer Worlds because that's the one that I want to play.
Yeah,
but every time I see it,
to me, it's like just a Bethesda game.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it comes with everything. It comes with not quite as polished as you'd like it to be, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad game. It's just like it's not quite as polished as I'd like it to be. It has the same feel as Fallout 3. It's got the same openness, like you said. It feels like a game I've played before, but the one thing that's keeping me interested is that it's space.
Yeah.
But tonight we might get that anyway.
We might get that from Bethesda, but the interesting thing with Obsidian is they have a better pedigree of, or at least they don't have the Bethesda jank.
Sure.
That Bethesda's known for. So it's possible that it'll be not necessarily a notch above, but just a little bit more refined.
Sure. More
of a CD Projekt game versus a Bethesda game.
Right. And if that's the case, then,
And I'm not talking bad about Bethesda. Bethesda games, I've always been interested in in what they do. I just don't care about any of their games.
Right.
It's just, none of their games speak to me. But I am fascinated by what they do.
Right. So I wanted to bring that one up because I love space, and I'm really interested in wanting to try it.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
I'm really hoping Starfield looks really cool.
Yeah. Hopefully we see something tonight. Is there
so in the same vein, like I just mentioned, Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk looks fantastic. The CG is incredible. I was expecting them to actually just go all out and say this is the next gen game, but they didn't. It's coming out on April 16th, 2020, on current gen hardware.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
I mean, it looks really cool. It's flashy. It's got this at least this time we got a really cool narrative look at what we're going into, and we have a huge surprise.
Whoa.
Keanu Reeves
is back.
Is what, Johnny Silverhand or something?
Yeah, something like that. I was just like, all right.
Then they brought him out on stage to give the release date.
Which, if you don't know that by now, is crazy. It was great.
It was the best part of the Xbox conference, and it happened in the first 25 minutes. So,
yeah.
Cyberpunk for me, again, it's just, I know CD Projekt Red, they're going to make an incredibly massive game that I'm going to be terrified to try to start playing.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to have to try
Mhm.
It's got the same first person problem for me where I'm not a first person
Like with Elder Scrolls
with the Elder
or
Scrolls. I just first person fantasy like that melee style game just doesn't
I
do
never
it for
liked
me
it when your hands are
because
always right
like
here.
you're doing
Uh,
this.
and
Uh,
I don't. I mean,
and that's just a personal thing. I've tried the Elder Scrolls. I've tried Skyrim. They just
mhm.
there's a disconnect between playing the game and feeling like it's a little cheap
Yeah. Similarly,
because no one walks like this.
yeah. Similarly, my thoughts on Cyberpunk is yes, it looks freaking awesome. It's gonna be it's gonna be the game to talk about. It's gonna be on par with Grand Theft Auto in the way that people
Mm.
want to talk about it and how everyone's consumed with it. I don't think
Yeah.
it'll hit the numbers like Grand Theft Auto
No,
because
no.
it's a deep. I mean, not to say Grand Theft Auto isn't deep, but it's. I mean, I'm gonna make a really bad analogy. I'll tell you after the show. But,
Okay.
Um, but it's just got this depth to it. But like with Skyrim, I played Skyrim for like many more hours than I really wanted to. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I forced myself to play Skyrim, and there was times that I enjoyed it enough, or times that I didn't mind exploring. But it felt like a game that I was playing because the rest of the world said it was a masterpiece.
Yeah. I remember specifically like I was playing the game and I like had just joined a guild or something or I was trying to join a guild, whatever. But I left a town and I wasn't really sure which way to go, and I walked for like I don't know an hour, and then I got onto the side of this mountain and then fought a dragon and died, and I was just stuck in this mountain. And every time I popped up, the dragon came out and started attacking me, and then I was just like kind of stuck, and I was 25 minutes away from anything, and I was like, okay, I'm just done here.
Yeah. And then the the first person's perspective doesn't inherently bother me, but it does like change the way I feel like I'm gonna approach the world. But the story trailer today did really. It was. It was kind of what you expect. It was like slummy.
Mhm.
Guy did a bad thing. Goes to the wrong people. Chaos ensues.
Yeah.
Seeing the X-Men from.
The modification.
Well, it reminded me of Deadpool in the X-Men movie.
Oh, the X-Men Origins where he
yeah,
had
the
the katana arms.
yeah.
Baraka.
Yeah, Baraka. There you go. And I am interested to see more about, and I'm assuming, and it wasn't specified that character we saw was supposed to be us,
Yeah, I think that's the protagonist.
or at least because you can be whatever you want.
Right,
So-
right. It's supposed to be super customizable or something.
Right. So like, if you decide that you're gonna have blade arms, or if you're gonna have like laser eyes or something like that, like I'm super interested. And the difference between this and a game like The Witcher or Skyrim is that I'm interested in the world.
Because yeah, fantasy is not your strong suit. And it's not my strong suit. There's some fantasy I can get into, like Lord of the Rings. I really love Dragon Age Origins, but some of it loses me. So, like Skyrim.
Right.
Um, then we can move on. You want to talk about? Let's see.
Well, the other big game I wanted to talk about, it's not necessarily a big game, is 12 minutes.
12 minutes. Yeah.
Out of all the like small titles they express, and to be honest, interested me more in than many of the big titles, was this game 12 minutes that I don't really know much about other than it's top-down perspective, Groundhog Day, like
Murder
you're
mystery
trying to
kind of
solve
deal.
something or prevent something from happening, a thriller, mystery, interactive, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to have a discussion where, on one hand, we're like, we don't even know what this is. Like Elden Ring. Let's talk about that for a second. Like, we know that made by Bandai Namco, most likely going to be a game that I'll never play because of its the track record of being really hard games that are meant to frighten
From software.
from software game. We're talking about Elden Ring right now.
Yeah.
But the trailer didn't really show me anything about it.
Yeah.
To
It
the point
gave,
where I'm
gave
like,
us
maybe
no context for that game whatsoever, other than it's a Miyazaki game, the guy who does the Dark Souls games, and paired up with George R. R. Martin, the Game of Thrones author.
Right. And so we going from that where you're like, I don't know anything about this game. and I have my context clues that tell me that this is going to be for me. Going to a game where it's made by Annapurna, or at least produced by Annapurna, and it has no context. You see the same thing happen a couple times, but it's just the perspective is interesting. The things that play out.
Well, what they showcased in the trailer, what gave you enough to connect to, like there's some kind of murder mystery going on. You see him trying to explain what's going on to this lady, and then she's starting to freak out. She's like, did you call the police on me? Did you do this?" And then the police knock on the door like, we're here to help, and then he's like, "No, you can't believe him. I'm your only way." And then they break in, and then he gets into a fight, and then it just flashes, and it starts the night over.
Yeah.
And it takes place inside of a single apartment. There's a couple, like there's a kitchen, a bedroom, and a bathroom, and you have to walk around and try to figure out what's going on. And if you don't figure it out, and before the guy comes in and starts breaking in, then it resets, and you retain that information because you're the player, and then you have to figure out how to get all that information.
Kind of like an escape room, but instead of that, like beat the clock or beat the bomb.
Right. You have to find out all the clues and try to convince this girl, I guess your wife, that you know what's going on, and you have to figure out how not to let that scenario happen. It's probably like your little minute.
Yeah, it felt like the idea does feel like minute.
Right.
But I think with a more forced narrative than minute. Minute is like more like original Legend of Zelda game where you just run around and try to figure out what's going on, whereas this is yeah.
It's basically Groundhog Day the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think of all the games they showed, for me that was probably my most interested. Obviously Cyberpunk, just because it looks beautiful, and CD Projekt Red has a great track record.
Mm-hmm. But then 12 minutes is accessible. It doesn't have the daunting thing, and it'll be a quick game you play in a day or two, and just have fun with it. The last game I really wanted to talk about, is not a game I expected to want to talk about, was Tales of Arise, coming out in 2020.
Tales of Arise?
Arise?
Arise.
The only reason I've never played any of the Tales of games. I think it's not as interesting to say Tales of Arise as it is to say Tales of Vesperia, but it's whatever. But I think, to be honest, what I got out of it was is like, it felt like a modern JRPG that played like Kingdom Hearts with cool weapons. And the world looked interesting. I have no idea what it's about. I have no idea if there's anything I need to know about the games before. But I don't know. It just seemed like a game like I could see myself playing that. And the lighting looked good. It looked like a good game.
Yeah.
And I can see myself playing that.
The other game I found interesting was Flight Simulator. They showcased Flight Simulator.
Actually, I'm looking right now on their shelf back there. There's a Flight Simulator.
Yeah, but my computer crashes every time I use it, and I don't have a joystick. And
you don't have an Xbox either, so.
No, I don't. But but you can do it on a PC.
Well, your computer is not gonna.
But that one that was the first time they showed that it was utilizing the Azure servers or the cloud. They've talked in the past about doing a lot of work in the cloud to make things look and perform better for you, the end user. And this time, or for this trailer, they showed that, and it was almost like you could fly around Google Maps, and everything looked beautiful.
Yeah.
And if you've ever played a flight simulator game, unless you're just like got a $5,000 PC, it typically looks a little janky. So, that one obviously was interesting to me. It's a Microsoft Game Studio, so it goes on the Game Pass as well. We can talk
in those simulators. Not to like spend 20 minutes talking about flight sims. I mean, I'm sure you would be fine with it, but how like detailed can they get?
They can get very detailed, especially because you can buy attachments to your keyboard. You remember when you were like 5, you had the Tonka thing, and you turned the Tonka wheel, and it actually just pressed keys.
Yeah.
Well, and you can get flight sticks and stuff like that, and it reads that. Of course, I don't know if it actually connects to the keyboard. It might just be a third party like not a Joy-Con, a joystick, and it you can have foot pedals and the mixture and all that stuff. You can actually have a lot of the controls, and then it pops up all your like steam gauges and things like that, and you can actually do takeoffs and landings and things like that, and you can use it as a supplement for flight training. You can't like I can't you can't log it as simulator hours, but you can use it to just keep current, keep your checklist going and things like that. So
Okay.
all right, we'll go on. I know it's boring, but Age of Empires 2. I was always an Age of Empires guy. I didn't play a ton of it, but I love RTSs on PC as a kid, and Age of Empires was one of them. They're doing a HD remake of it, and it's going to be on Game Pass. So
It's going to be in 4K, and all the sound's been remastered
oh yeah,
and everything?
I was actually really just hoping for an Age of Empires 4 reveal, because Age of Empires 2 is really, really old. I guess a lot of people liked it. I was a kid, so Age of Empires was Age of Empires. But
Yeah.
other big news in the last year, they announced 7 new studios. They announced another one in Double Fine. They're joining the the Microsoft Game Studios.
The creators of Psychonauts, they revealed a Psychonauts 2 trailer without a release date.
Again, I mean, they've talked about Psychonauts 2 before.
Right.
But they still have a release date. But and Psychonauts 2 is still going everywhere, just like Outer Worlds from Obsidian. But from after that, Double Fine games will be Xbox exclusive, or Microsoft exclusive. They announced a collection, the Star Wars Saga Lego collection. Basically, all the Lego games from 1 to 8 or whatever, and then they're going to add the Rise of Skywalker DLC or something later on.
And they announced a new controller, like an update.
Updated to the.
It looks really cool. I just don't personally like. Since I don't have it, I don't have anything to comment on about it. But I think just to round out our show, we should talk about the projects, our takeaway on what happened at the end there.
Well, before we get onto the Project Scarlet, Gears 5 is coming. Let me do just a quick recap on what we've got written down here. I'm just going to give you my notes. Games Pass for PC open beta starts now. You can get into it starting now. It's $9.99 a month. The Xbox Ultimate is the Xbox PC and includes Xbox Live Gold. That's you can start for $1 this month. I don't know if it's just, or maybe it's just this week during E3. It's $14.99 a month. There's going to be a new Dragon Ball Z game. They didn't say anything else, really more than that. They showed a trailer. It looked like Dragon Ball Z. Gears 5. That's one of their big tent poles. Got to talk about it. Bound by Blood. September 10th, 2019. Looks like a Gears game.
You can get it 4 days early on Game Pass Ultimate and certain pre-order bundles, and also they showcased a multiplayer-focused PvE version called Escape, and also if you do a pre-order bonus, you can get the Terminator Dark Fate skins.
They announced Dying Light 2 for 2020. They announced there's going to be the Lego Movie DLC for Forza Horizon 4.
This week on the 13th.
Yeah, that comes out this week. State of Decay 2 gets a story-based DLC called Heartland today. Phantasy Star Online 2, which is a big deal. Phantasy Star is coming to Xbox Game Pass, so have at it.
And free to play, yeah.
And the other ones, what did they start with? They started with Ori the Blind. No, it was Star Wars.
So it was Bleeding Edge with Ninja Theory, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Minecraft Dungeon, and there was a Star Wars.
Yeah, and there was.
I didn't put that down. I didn't think we could talk about it.
Yeah, well, they showed another really story trailer for Star Wars Fallen Order, which EA talked about yesterday, but we'll talk about that more when we talk about third parties. Like I said, I think Xbox looks really good. Well, fairly good for 2020. Like everything, almost everything they talked about of like significance was 2020. But to round this up, we have Project Scarlet. This just was
they
like
so they tweeted several times, or at least one nice tweet about how they were gonna really showcase, or maybe I'm paraphrasing what they said, but showcase what next gen.
we're going to talk about. You're going to hear or talk about more, or more talk about our next gen hardware, or we're going to reveal next gen hardware, or something to that effect. And they revealed Project Scarlet, which we already knew.
Yeah, I guess the real reveal was supposed to be the technical components of it.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, it's great that they have all that and they're excited about it. But I mean, everything we read about a couple weeks ago in for the PlayStation.
yeah.
Um,
What we were talking about this is Xbox's year. Sony's not here. They can really lead the charge on next gen. This is where they needed to have their little scissor reel about at the beginning, just like they did, but that would be fine. But it's not called Project Scarlet. We're going to give it a name. It's going to be the Xbox Forever, Xbox 3,
I mean,
Xbox 99, because they can't figure out the next name, which is probably why it's still Project Scarlet.
I mean, what if it is just Project Scarlet? And that's the thing; they never said if it was actually the title or not.
That's just like Orbis or Dolphin.
I mean, I know
or,
that's how it is in the past, but things don't always have to be. The
I
way
know,
they were.
and maybe it will be Project Scarlet, just like Project xCloud instead of an actual name. But that doesn't make marketing sense.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to call it Project Scarlet because it doesn't have the Xbox marketing.
Right.
It's got to be Xbox Scarlet, Xbox something.
Mm-hmm.
Announced it for holiday 2020, so a full year and a half away.
Yeah. Which we still might have a year and a half away from the PS5, but we didn't hear anything about the PS5 this year.
Yeah, only thing we heard about PS5 was in an interview with Mark Cerny from Wire in a leaked image, and what we heard about from that is exactly what Project Scarlet told us: solid state drive, ray tracing. I don't think they actually said anything about flops, but like it
They
was
said it was 4 times more powerful.
4 times more
than the
powerful,
Xbox
40 times more whatever. They gave us all this stuff. We know this is going to be a like at least a processing jump. We expect it to be at least what PlayStation just told us, and they know that's what PlayStation just told us because they heard about it too.
I mean, half the buzzwords they said, I'm like, we've like loading times,
Loading times,
faster
ray
things.
tracing, like this could have been. This could have been a home run.
Even with all that stuff, they could have said all that stuff and then been. And the thing that bugged me the most about that video
Is it teased the name?
Well, no, it kept like the things it was teasing. You saw like the edges of curves, the edges of letters, really making it look like, oh, we were about to reveal the console, what the box looks
Right.
like, and then it was just the name.
The name that we already knew.
So it was kind of like, what was the point of all this? I mean, I don't want to sound like it was such a dumb thing, but it really felt like
This is exactly what we said would happen if Sony came out on stage and said what they said in that interview.
yeah.
There's not enough there to talk about right now. We want to give you a little taste of what's coming, but there's no reason for us to step on stage and tell you this because I can't tell you more. We don't have finalized what the hardware looks like. We haven't finalized the name. We still have trademarks and patents to get all filed before we can actually tell you what we need to tell you.
And so at this point, it feels like they felt the need to say, okay, well, it's coming holiday 2020, so they have a year and a half to figure out what the name is if it's not Project Scarlet, and figure out everything else. And to me, it's just like, now they're racing I feel like they kind of got in front of themselves a little bit with this because now it's like, I mean, what if it wasn't ready? It's holiday 2020. What if it was later? But now they're like holiday 2020.
And we got a year and a half. There's so many like technology moves faster.
See, I've heard that argument a few times, and my only issue with that is that PlayStation just announced all of the same information is going into theirs.
Yes, but they haven't put a finalized They haven't given us a finalized spec sheet. They can still make changes.
Mm-hmm.
They they haven't promised anything but a solid state drive.
Right.
Really. They
They've
said
worked with AMD
they
too.
they
And
said they're working with AMD. They're doing custom this. They're doing custom that. They they're wanting to do ray tracing or they're really talking about 3D, but they haven't put anything up on a stage. They can still say, you know what, we got a really good deal here to go up on the solid state drive or go. They have options, and even if they don't do anything, there's options. Whereas Microsoft has now put themselves in. Okay, this is where we're at. Almost 2 years away.
mm-hmm. I mean, they can still change. Like,
They can still change.
I mean, the fact, see, that's the only thing about this argument that you were making, which I get why. It's like a year and a half away, you're saying all this stuff. But, I mean, they're not going to stick to it. They're going to put GDR7 in it or whatever. I don't know anything. But, like, they'll upgrade where it needs to be upgraded. And so will Sony. But it is silly in my head.
And they had these, was it developers or the guys working on the console?
Yeah.
They didn't really specify who these people they were talking were, but
There's no,
they're like, we've never seen frame rate like this. Like, ever. And then said 120 frames per second. Like,
maybe they didn't specifically say on console.
they didn't say on console. Because developers have seen that. They've seen much more than 120 frames per second. It was a little cheeky, not even cheeky, just like,
Yeah.
we have seen that. If you had said, we've never seen anything like this on a console, ever, 120 frames per second, that would be a little bit better of a, like a bullet point. But to say, we've never seen anything like this, ever, is, you can play Destiny higher frame rates on a PC.
Right.
Like, I just think the whole thing was just
It
not
was kind of it was blowing the load too early. It was just like
hmm
I don't know.
And it's coming with Halo Infinite at launch, which they showed us another 5-minute trailer on that.
I thought it was. I mean, someone who doesn't know anything was like, okay, that's trailer.
The trailer was fine. Just showed no gameplay. Again, no game. We saw no gameplay from Gears. We saw no gameplay from
Now, Gears
Ninja
was
Theory.
doing a post-show thing, but it is, I think, the thing that there's controversy around that. Like, well, why didn't they show any gameplay? They've showed gameplay last year, and they did a post-show gameplay. But I think it's important to still show.
Give us a
like,
story-based gameplay. It can be 5 minutes. It doesn't even be a 15-minute long middle of the conference deal where you don't really give us anything.
Right.
Except there's going to be game modes in a game.
Yeah.
And it's just, and I turned to you and I said, you know, it would be hilarious if Sony comes out in September with they see what Microsoft just did. They're like, you know, we can do this. They can come out in September. We're gonna do PSX in September, and we're gonna launch PS5 April 2020 because they've said they're not having anything until after fiscal year 2020 or until the end of fiscal year, whatever. That would be March, so they can launch it in April.
Yeah.
And they can launch next gen 6 months earlier than Xbox and get that lead out, because what Microsoft's not going to have anything to say until next E3 unless they do what they did last time, was have their own thing in May.
Right. I don't know.
I mean, I don't anticipate that. I still anticipate we have their state of play is the rest of the year. They announce a PSX or a PlayStation conference in February, and then we'll launch in November as normal. But this totally puts the ball into Sony's court that they can totally take advantage of this right now.
Yeah. Well, so that's our thoughts for Microsoft's press conference for 2019. We thought it was good, but we didn't think it was great, and it needed to be great. So,
yeah. If this was last year or the year before, when they really needed some help, like this, it would have been a great conference. We're like, okay, we have stuff on the horizon, but now we're looking into next gen. If you're going to kick it off, you got to kick it off.
Right. So this video will go up pretty soon, and then tomorrow we will be doing a video after the
Well, tomorrow is we have Bethesda night, then we have Ubisoft, the Kind of Funny showcase, and the Square.
So after the Square Enix conference, we'll be doing a third parties video recap, which will be a little longer. We'll go through each of them, talk about our highlights,
Yeah,
and then we will do one more.
we're gonna do an overall an overall and just our thoughts on E3 as a whole after the end of it, because we'll have Tuesday morning we have Nintendo, and so we'll have seen all the conferences up until that point. We can even, I guess, if we wanted to, did we talk about Stadia yet?
We did well. We talked. Well, we'll rope that. We should rope that into the
E3.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll figure it out, but so yeah, we'll include the Stadia. We could talk about Destiny's big changes coming up, and then we'll have this one. We have the third parties, and then we'll have the overall, which will include the Kind of Funny showcase. I think. Well, we can include that third party. So we'll just do the overall, and then we'll talk about Stadia and.
Yeah, so it'll all come out on the video.
We'll figure it out. This is our first E3. Stick with us.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching, and until next time.
Say goodbye, Nick.
Bye, Nick.